radio band, and simulcasting on 160 meters AM on 1865 kilohertz, and also streaming via the YouTube stream, which you can find on the YouTube channel. Just type in VK3CSJ in the YouTube engine, search engine, and you'll find the live link. There's no broadcast via the Melbourne TV repeater, as the repeater currently has a bit of an issue with the 1255 input, so we're not broadcasting via the repeater. So all visual aspect to tonight's broadcast will be presented via the YouTube channel. A very pleasant good evening to everybody. I hope everything is going out okay. As usual, I tend to leave things to the last moment, and I'm just going to check my audio level on HF 123. It sounds good on 160, and just check on 80 123. Yep, sounds okay. We have a broadcast tonight, or a video feed from Tamitha Scove. She's got she's done a 13-minute recording for the latest solar report, which just came out a short while ago. So that goes for 13 minutes, and we'll run that a little bit later in the hour, whatever comes first. Anyway, like I say, I trust everybody is okay after this crazy week that we're all kind of living through with the Queen and all that sort of stuff. So I won't harp on that. We also have an email address, so if anybody wishes to send signal reports tonight, you can send emails to vk3ekh@gmail.com, vk3ekh@gmail.com, and also we have a chat cord window open, so if anybody wishes to come up and start a conversation, you can join the chat cord, the Discord chat room. That's what I'm trying to say, and that can be found on the ASV website, or the link to it at least can be found on the ASV website at www.asv.org.au under the Radio Astronomy tab, and click on the ASV broadcast link, and that'll open up a page where you'll see not only the YouTube stream as well, but there's a little link to the Discord channel, which has got a radio telescope on it. And I can see already there's a few folks there on the chat window. So very pleasant good evening to Martin, VK7JH, and Richard, VK3VRS. Yep, that's fine.
All signals sound good here, Clint, VK3XL.
There it is. There's a report from the local lad, Mike, VK3XL, and giving me a report over my shoulder here. Thanks, Mike, for that. Half the time it's I do everything here at the whim. Now I'm running lots of level on my vMix program here. It's clipping, well, not, it's into the red, and I'd be interested to know if the audio level on YouTube is perhaps too much, because I've got to be careful of that. I've monitored myself after these broadcasts a day or so later, and I think the audio level on YouTube is the YouTube stream is a little bit too much. So I've just got to be mindful of not getting too close to the microphone. I'm just going to turn the audio down on something else here, because that is just simply annoying. And I'm listening to the other frequency, the 23 centimeter frequency too, by the way, Richard, if anything else needs to come up there. All right. Now, where do we go from here? Because we've missed a number of Fridays, so it's all a bit scattered at the moment. And yes, I can hear. And G'day to Andrew, Don, and Total Block. Oh, that's the ad block thing. Sorry, I had to quickly subscribe to a block ad block thing to stop some annoying ads coming up on this computer. Didn't have time to muck around with it otherwise. So Andrew has checked in. VK3KIS, wrong mouse, Clint, and he says he's listening on 80 meters, 5 and 9 into Ringwood. Thanks, Andrew. Don reports, glad to have you back. Signals tonight 85 and 9, 165, 930. Good, excellent. I think that the linear's kicked on 160. It's I might have the wrong linear on. Hang on a sec.
YouTube audio on sounds proper too, Clint.
Good, excellent. Thanks for that. All right. Yeah, I had the wrong linear on for 160, so that's just warming up at the moment. And I might just to see if the relay's checking on that. So stand by. I'm just going to drop off on 160 for a second. Yep. All right, we're on the linear now, so that's running a few more watts. Let me just check its power. Yep, not a problem. All right, just last minute tweaks there. So we're running a few more watts on 160 there, Don. That should up the signal. I think we're originally about 40 watts before, but now it should be up around 100 watts on 160 AM. So that's a bit better signal. All right, just as a bit of an update here, I think a lot of you are aware that I might be, well, not that I've made great big discussions about it here, but I've always been interested in astronomy, particularly the optical side of it. But the only shortcoming has been the lack of telescopes and a place to put them. So, pardon me. So, just recently, I've organised a 3-metre scope dome from Sidereal Trading over there in Tullamarine. So I've put a deposit on one, and I probably won't see it until sometime early next year. It's still in Poland where they get made. Unfortunately, here in Australia, we just don't seem to be manufacturing astrodomes. You've got a number of choices. You can build a roll-off observatory. That's probably the cheapest way of doing it. A garden shed, and arrange for the roof to be on wheels, so you can roll it right off and expose the telescope to the entire sky. And that's the cheapest way of doing it, and that works for a lot of folks. It's not a problem with that. Probably one of the big advantages of being able to roll off your roof is that you get the entire sky over your head in one view, and you just point your telescope where you want to go to. But I've been fighting with the idea of going with a roll-off roof for a long time. There's a Facebook page dedicated to roll-off observatories, and I even purchased a book here that describes what's involved in building a roll-off observatory type observatory. But of course, I'm one of these sorts of guys that prefers a dome, just because it's traditional. And I like the look of them. So these scope domes aren't necessarily the cheapest option. So I've gone from one extreme of thinking to the other extreme. It's a once in a lifetime purchase as far as I'm concerned, and I'm relying on my super to do it, because otherwise I couldn't do it. So the scope dome, you can investigate the scope domes by going to the Sidereal Trading. It's the website, Sidereal Trading. It's a good plug there for those guys out there at Tullamarine. They've been around for quite a while, and yeah, so like I say, I've organised a 3-metre dome, and that's being currently made in Poland, and will probably ship out sometime early next year, or it'll be next year sometime. So what I have to do now is create a deck. I could have either elected for a concrete base, for the dome to rest on, or a deck, a wooden deck on concrete pillars or some sort of structure. So I've now got to work out how to make a deck. But anyway, it's all going to be a bit of fun. There's an area just down the back there, not too far from the 160 metre vertical that I'm using right now for AM. And I'll place, because it's the darkest spot on the whole property down there. I'm just on Cranbourne Road here in Narre Warren South. There is a significant amount of light pollution, but you can still get some pretty good nights here for looking at the sky. So you'll be surprised actually what still can be seen in the suburban area of Melbourne, both planetary, looking at the planets in the solar system, as well as deep sky objects. So fortunately, I've got some decent telescopes now that will enable me to do that. But the important thing is that I can set the telescope up in its permanent location, protected by the dome, and it'll make studying the sky and looking at the sky and putting a specialized camera on the telescope to take astrophotography, which is what I'm looking forward to getting into. So I'll keep you guys abreast of all that. I'll let you know how things progress over the next few months, and certainly up to the point where we have the telescope finally commissioned and actually being able to look through it and see some interesting objects. And ultimately, what I'd like to do is to be able to run a camera and automate the observatory. So I'm up here in the warmth of the Radio Shack, and I'll be able to do a lot of work from remotely from in here without having to be down there freezing in the dome. But at least the other thing about the dome is that you are protected to the environment to some degree. If it's a little bit windy or a little bit cold, you're not really exposed too much to the environment, except for the open part where the telescope's looking through. I'll keep you guys abreast of that, and let's let you know how things move along, as they say. All right. G'day, Brett. Brett's come up on the chat window. Howdy doody. VK2CBD. All right. Now, information about the Astronomical Society can be found on the ASV website at www.asv.org.au. You can easily join if you wish. The membership is just there on the homepage, and all's will be revealed. My call sign information, there it is, just popping that up on the screen. Thanks, Richard. Okay, now we will have got a number of little articles here which we'll run into. We'll start off with some dates that I haven't finished yet from the calendar from previous broadcast. So this is courtesy of Sky Notes from the planetarium. So there, I automatically looked up at the repeater there to see if I was coming through the repeater, but nothing there, of course. Okay, let's kick off with what's today's date? It's the 16th here, isn't it? So, well, there's no date for the 16th. The nearest is the 17th. So I'll kick off with that. On the 17th, what is the month? It's August, isn't it? Yeah, 17th of August, 1976. September. God, Clint. 17th of September 1976, NASA unveils its concept for a space transportation system, a rocket launched and a glider return orbiter known as the Space Shuttle. So all that planning for the Space Shuttle started as early as 1976. Also on the 17th of September 1857 was the birth of Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, a pioneering Russian, then Soviet teacher whose theoretical work on aerodynamics and rocketry influenced all who followed. He advocated space flight and believed humans would colonize the galaxy. Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, something like that. On the 18th of September 1977, Voyager 1 sends the first image of the Earth-Moon together taken from a distance of 11.6 million kilometres while on its way to Jupiter. Yes, I think I remember reading that out last time. The 21st of September 1633, the Roman Catholic Inquisition begins its trial of Galileo for heresy in publishing and advocating the heliocentric or sun-centered solar system, contrary to church doctrine, dogma and scripture, which was only updated back in the early 80s. I think they actually finally got around to changing that in their scriptures, from what I've read somewhere. On the 23rd of September 1846, Neptune, first predicted by Urbain Le Verrier, France, is discovered by Johann Gottfried Galle in Germany, with John Couch Adams, UK, recognised for an independent discovery. John Couch Adams, Neptune. And the last date is the 27th of September 1905. Albert Einstein published his paper containing the famous equation E equals mc squared, energy equals mass multiplied by the speed of light squared, meaning that a small amount of matter is equivalent to or can be converted into a great deal of energy. I can remember blasting VK3, I can remember blasting E equals MC2, VK3 EMC2, I can remember blasting the equation on all my notebooks at school, making it look really cool that I to my other students, oh, what you know something about that sort of thing. It always looked good, I scribbled E equals MC squared on my notes at work at school. Anyway, so there's the sky notes for half of it. Most of it's now that's finished now, so we'll get rid of that. Thank you to the planetarium for those sky notes. Okay, this year has been amazing for folks that have been passing away from us. It's I guess that's bound to happen, isn't it? Anyway, here's a bit of a sad note. One of Carl Sagan's friends, Frank Drake, creator of the Drake equation and Project Ozma, dies at 92. He was a trailblazer in the search for life beyond our planet. Drake also fostered young stars on Earth. Now I've got a picture of Mr. Drake that I can bring up, so I'll just cut to him, and audio is still there, yes. So there he is, Frank Drake, pictured with his famous Drake equation. Frank Drake, famous for pioneering the modern-day search for extraterrestrial intelligence, died in the early morning hours of September 2 at his home in Aptos, California. He was 92. Drake established the methods still used today by those who hope to prove the existence of alien societies. As a result, Drake was an astronomer known to just about everyone. After all, his search for radio signals coming from two nearby star-like systems, playfully christened Project Ozma, is covered in most astronomy courses. To me, however, Frank was a friend and a mentor to the author who wrote this. When we were both at the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Institute, known as SETI, his office was just a short walk down from my own, he says. He was always happy to lend an ear, regardless of if I wanted to talk about astronomy or something else. He could always be counted on to provide insights that few others could offer. In 1960, Drake, who was fresh out of grad school, took a position at the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, NRAO, in Greenbank, West Virginia. There was one large instrument there, an 85-foot wide, 26-metre antenna from the Ball Knox Company. Observatory director Otto Sturvey encouraged Drake to think of an interesting experiment to do with his new radio telescope. A young and creative astronomer, Drake proposed searching for narrowband radio signals coming from the sky. He reasoned that such signals would not be generated by natural processes, but instead by transmitters under the control of beings with intelligence comparable or superior to our own. Unlike his predecessors, Galileo Marconi and Nikola Tesla, Drake turned his gaze not to Mars, but to stars about a dozen light years away, Tau Ceti and Epsilon and Eridani. While the idea of trying to eavesdrop on other galactic societies is familiar today, it was a radical suggestion in the 60s, one that might have elicited desertion from the wider astronomical community. To avoid that, Drake limited the scale of his experiment, spending only a few weeks listening at about $2,000 on new equipment. Despite Drake's attempts to keep the search low-key, it attracted worldwide attention, and although he didn't hear any extraterrestrials, Drake's Project Ozma was recognized as a fundamentally new way to explore the cosmos. The National Academy of Sciences then suggested that Drake organise a conference to discuss the fledgling field. At a meeting held at Greenbank in 1961, Drake unveiled a simple equation that encapsulated the parameters relevant to the gauging of a number of broadcasting societies in our galaxy, or in the galaxy. This simple formula is now known as the famous Drake equation. It remains, like Project Ozma, standard fodder for countless introductory astronomy courses. In the years since its creation, the author says, I have occasionally seen papers claiming that Drake's equation is somehow incomplete and that it's missing some important term. I once asked Drake about this and he laughed. He was aware of many such claims that insisted that the existing formulation includes all the relevant phenomena. A touchier matter concerned the equation's name, as some have suggested that it really should have been called Drake's Sagan equation, but this work was Drake's alone. The author says, when I joined the SETI Institute in 1990, Drake was president. He was ensconced in a roomy office with a relaxing view of trees and grass, a scene that was already rare in the Silicon Valley. In one of our conversations, I recall asking him if he had any advice for people at the beginning of their careers. He smiled, then responded in a soft voice, well, you've got to know your limitations. At first I thought he sounded like something Clint Eastwood had muttered in a movie. Eventually, however, I recognised the insight and the utility of his answer. I was not the only one to receive Drake's shrewd advice either. Like many organisations, the SETI Institute has weekly meetings to discuss its current and future activities. I recall Drake sitting at the conference table during these meetings, head down. On first impression, he didn't seem to be particularly interested in whatever was being discussed. However, when he did finally contribute, his comments, delivered in his low-key manner, were invariably central to whatever issue was at hand. He always struck straight to the heart of any matter. But Drake was never an impatient listener. He was to my mind one of the nice guys around. He was never moody, never angry, and he didn't show the slightest annoyance if you walked into his office and took his attention away from whatever he was doing. That truly impressed me, says the author, and I was once asked about his equanimity in the face of random interruptions. I assumed he might have developed this rare talent in response to dealing with his children. He says, no, he said, it was dealing with my students. Looking back on this moment now, it's a reminder of how many lives and careers that he's touched. Everyone familiar with astronomy recognises the discipline's trailblazers, its historical heroes from Capricornus to Hubble, but almost none have had the opportunity to know them personally and to interact with them in daily life as opposed to reading their names in a textbook. Drake was a pioneer, one of thousands of astronomers that have listened to or met. That's a rare privilege, for a few disciplines are still blessed with the participation of those who started them. Someday astronomers wielding large antennas may pick up a thin radio sequel from the cosmos that will tell us we have a company in our galaxy. That will be a huge transformative event for our species, and such a discovery, should it ever occur, will be largely thanks to a man who first suggested that the search was worth pursuing. Frank Drake may be gone, but his legacy will persist as long as humans glimpse up at the night sky and wonder if there's anyone looking back or listening back. So there's been plenty of article written on Frank over the last few weeks. Just about every major publication has done an article on Frank. And I first saw him when doing a university lecture. There was a time when I think it was the Channel 9 network used to televise live lectures to air, or maybe they might have been recordings, replays. But I think it was a Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, as a fill-in before programs started. University, black and white. It was black and white days, and I do vividly remember seeing Frank Drake talking about radio astronomy, and Carl Sagan talking about astronomy in two lectures. So I first saw those two chaps as early as perhaps 9-10 years old. Not that I understood exactly what they were talking about, of course, but it was about astronomy, and that would have caught my interest. So and of course Seth Shostak. That might be a familiar name to you out there, Seth Shostak. He's in the same league as, I'd put him in the same league as Sagan and Drake, but he's doing his own kind of research. But he's been involved with Jill Tarter in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And fortunately, I've had a chance to meet Seth. He came to Melbourne one day, so it was good to catch up with him. Having a chance to meet Carl Sagan and Frank Drake was well out of my league. So, but there it is. Anyway, you're tuned to ASV Radio, VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel. About time I said that. How quick time gets away when you're having fun. Okay, next article I've got here, which is again in a similar vein, courtesy of astronomy.com website. Okay, SETI. Let's continue on in the same theme. Why extraterrestrial intelligence is more likely to be artificial than biological. Organic human-level intelligence may be just a brief interlude in human history before machines take over. This was published September 15. And there is a little picture here of a bunch of radio telescopes, so I'll just run that up for the duration. I think there's another image there too. Oh yeah, Dyson sphere. I'll have to run that in a minute too. Alright, let me continue on with the article quickly. Okay, so is there intelligent life elsewhere in the universe, you might ask? It's a question that has been debated for centuries, if not millennia. But it's only recently that we've had an actual chance of finding out, with initiatives such as SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence using radio telescopes to actively listen to radio messages from alien civilizations. What should we expect to detect if these searches succeed? My suspicion is that it is very unlikely to be little green men, something I speculated about at a talk at Breakthrough Listen SETI Project conference, said the author. Suppose there are other planets where life began and that it followed something like a Darwinian evolution, which needn't be the case. Even then, it's highly unlikely that the progression of intelligence and technology would happen exactly at the same pace as on Earth. If it lagged significantly behind, then the planet would plainly reveal no evidence of extraterrestrial life in our radio telescopes. But around a star older than the Sun, life could have had a head start of a few billion years or more. Human technology and civilization only dates back a millennia at most, and it may be only one of the 2 more centuries before humans made up the organic materials such as carbon, overtaken or transcended by inorganic intelligence such as AI. Computer processing power is already increasing exponentially, meaning AI, artificial intelligence, in the future may be able to use vastly more data than it does today. It seems to follow that it could then get exponentially smarter, surpassing human general intelligence. Perhaps the starting point would be to enhance ourselves with genetic modification in combination with technology, creating cyborgs with partly organic and partly inorganic parts. This could be a transition to fully artificial intelligences. AI may even be able to evolve, creating better and better versions of itself on a faster than Darwinian timescale of billions of years. Organic human level intelligence could even be just a brief interlude in our human history before the machines take over. So if alien intelligence had evolved similarly, we'd be most likely to catch it in the brief sliver of time when it was still embodied in biological form. If we were to detect extraterrestrial life, it would be far more likely to be electronic than flesh and blood, and it may not even reside on planets. We must therefore reinterpret the Drake equation, as mentioned before, which was established in 1960, to estimate the number of civilizations in the Milky Way which we could potentially communicate. The equation includes various assumptions such as how many planets there are, but also how long a civilization is able to release signals into space, estimated to be between 1,000 and 100 million years. But the lifetime of an organic civilization may be a millennia at most, while its electronic diaspora could continue for billions of years. If we include this in the equation, it seems there may be more civilizations out there than we thought, but that the majority of them would be artificial. We may even want to rethink the term alien civilizations. A civilization connotes a society of individuals. In contrast, extraterrestrials might be a single integrated intelligence. If SETI succeeded, it would therefore be unlikely to record decodable messages. Instead, it may spot a byproduct or even a malfunction of some super complex machine far beyond our comprehension. SETI focuses on the radio part of the electromagnetic spectrum, but as we have no idea of what's out there, we should clearly explore all wave bands, including the optical and X-ray parts. Rather than just listening for radio transmission, we should also be alert to other evidence of non-natural phenomena or activity. These include artificial structures built around stars. To absorb their energy, Dyson spheres, or artificially created molecules such as chlorofluorocarbons, non-toxic, non-flammable chemicals containing carbon, chlorine, and fluorine in planet atmospheres. These chemicals are greenhouse gases that can't be created by natural processes, meaning that they could be a sign of terraforming, changing a planet to make it more inhabitable, or industrial pollution. There is an image here of a Dyson sphere. It's obviously a artist's impression, of course. There it is up on YouTube. So what you're seeing there is that advanced extraterrestrials could build Dyson spheres. A Dyson sphere was depicted in one episode of Star Trek. I actually just watched that the other day. How they came across the Dyson sphere. Imagine that, huh? Anyway, the author says that it says, I'd argue it would even be worth looking for traces of aliens in our own solar system. He says, while we can probably rule out visits by human-like species, there are other possibilities. An extraterrestrial civilization that had mastered nanotechnology may have transferred its intelligence to tiny machines. For example, it could even invade other worlds or even asteroid belts with swarms of microscopic probes. And even if we did receive a decodable radio message, how could we know what the intention of the superintelligent sender would be? We have absolutely zero idea. Think of the variety of bizarre motives, ideological, financial and religious, that have driven human endeavours in the past. They may be peaceful and inquisitive. Even less obtrusively, they may realise that it's easier to think at low temperatures, getting far away from any star, or even hibernating for billions of years until it's cooler. But they could be expansionists, and this seems to be an expectation of most who've thought about the future of trajectory of civilizations. As the universe evolves, intelligent species may get unfathomably clever. Just take our own future. Eventually, stellar births and deaths in our galaxy will proceed gradually, more slowly, until it gets jolted as the Milky Way crashes through the Andromeda galaxy in about 1 billion years. The debris of our galaxy, Andromeda, and their smaller companions within our local group of galaxies will thereafter clump together into one amorphous galaxy, while distant ones move away from us and eventually disappear. But our remnant will continue for far longer, time enough perhaps for a civilization to merge that could be in procession of huge amounts of energy, even harnessing the entire mass of a galaxy. This may be the accumulation of long-term trend for living systems to gain complexity. At this stage, all the atoms that were once in stars and gas could be transformed into a giant organism of galactic scale. Some science fiction authors envisage stellar-scale engineering to create black holes and wormholes, bridges connecting different points in space-time, in theory providing shortcuts for space travellers. These concepts are far beyond our technological capability that we can envisage, but not in violation of basic physical laws. Post-human intelligences may also be able to build computers with enormous processing power. Humans are already able to model some quite complex phenomena such as the climate. More intelligent civilizations, however, may be able to simulate living things with actual consequences, or even entire worlds or universes. Consciousnesses, actually not consequences, with actual consciousnesses. Finally, how do we know that we aren't living in such a simulation created by technologically superior aliens? Maybe we are no more than a bit of an entertainment for some supreme being who is running such a model. Indeed, if life is destined to be able to create technologically advanced civilizations that can make computer programs, there may be more simulated universes out there that real ones. Sorry, I'll say that again. If life is destined to be able to create technologically advanced civilizations that can make computer programs, there may be more simulated universes out there than real ones out there. There's something wrong about that sentence, making it conceivable that we are in one of them. This conjecture may sound outlandish, but it is all based on our current understanding of physics and cosmology. We should, however, surely be open-minded about the possibility that there's much we don't understand. Perhaps the laws we see and the constraints we measure are only local and differ in other parts of the universe. What could lead to even more jaw-dropping possibilities? Ultimately, physical reality could encompass complexities that neither our intellect nor our senses can grasp. Some electronic brains may simply have a quite different perception of reality, nor can we predict or understand their motives. That's why we can't assess whether the current radio silence that SETI are experiencing signifies the absence of advanced alien civilizations or simply their preference. Okay, that's an article from astronomy.com. It's titled SETI, Why Extraterrestrial Intelligence is More Likely to be Artificial Than Biological. So you can read that for yourselves if you like. Oh dear. Anyway, you're tuned to ASV Radio, VK3EKH. I've got, if I'm going to squeeze in Tamitha's report, I might have time for one more little article here. Let's just see what I've got up here. Okay, that's short enough. This is some latest imagery coming in from the James Webb Space Telescope. So I'll throw this up on the screen. Where are we? There it is. Okay, so what do we have here? James Webb Space Telegraph, that's it. James Webb Space Telescope photographs universe's most distant known star. Arendelle started shining about 900 million years after the Big Bang and is only observable because of an extraordinary cosmic coincidence, September 7. What you're seeing there on the screen, on YouTube screen if you're watching, the James Webb Space Telescope captured the most distant known star, Arendelle, in this deep field shot released August 2nd. One of the great challenges of astronomers is to understand when the first stars formed and what they were like. They already have some clues. First, hydrogen and helium formed about 380,000 years after the Big Bang. The first stars were made of this, and second, the oldest galaxies formed about 400 million years after the Big Bang. So, meet the ancient star Arendelle. So the first stars must have formed at some point in between. The best estimate is that the earliest stars began to shine perhaps 100 million years or so after the Big Bang, but the truth is that nobody really knows because these stars have never been observed until this year. The oldest observed stars formed about 4.4 billion years after the Big Bang. That's considerably later than this first period of star formation. Now, the James Webb Space Telescope has photographed a star that began shining just 900 million years after the Big Bang. The images improve on those taken earlier this year by the Hubble Space Telescope, which discovered this ancient object, but provided astronomers with their first glimpse of a star from this early period of the universe. And there's another image here I've got, which I'll just bring up quickly. What you're seeing there in this image is it's actually pointed out Arendelle. Arendelle's host galaxy, the Sunrise Arc, is smeared across the sky by gravitational lensing. Interesting. Astronomers call this ancient star Arendelle, a word derived from Old English meaning rising light. It began burning some 13 billion years ago, but because the expansion of the universe now sits about 28 billion light years from Earth, making it the most distant star ever observed. Arendelle is only observable because of an extraordinary cosmic coincidence. As seen from the Earth, it sits behind a vast cluster of galaxies called WHL 0137-08, with a gravitational field that focuses its starlight towards Earth, magnifying it up to 40,000 times. This gravitational lensing effect makes Arendelle host galaxy appear as a smear of light across the distant universe. Astronomers have named it Sunrise Arc. The arc contains bright knots of lights along its length, and one of these knots is Earendel. So you can see that in the image there. It's quite amazing, isn't it? James Webb Space Telescope images improve on Hubble's and narrow down the potential size of the star. The star appears as a joint source of light, suggesting it cannot be greater than 4,000 astronomical units across. These new observations strengthen the conclusion that Earendel is best explained by an individual star of multiple star systems, says Brian Walsh at Johns Hopkins University at Baltimore and colleagues who have analysed these images. The team say that the photometry suggests Earendel has a surface temperature of between 13,000 to 16,000 Kelvin. This in turn suggests the star is a giant hydrogen-burning B-type star with a mass somewhere between 20 and 200 times that of our own Sun. However, the team also says that Earendel could be a binary system, and that various combinations of stars could better fit the observed data. Indeed, the best fit is a combination of luminous cool star and a hot companion. For the moment, the data does not allow the team to solve this problem. However, James Webb Space Telescope is due to observe Earendel later again this year, when more data could help to constrain the nature of the star of that star system. It will also provide astronomers with more data about the universe's earliest stars. That's interesting work that shows off the extraordinary light gathering power of the James Webb Space Telescope and its older relative Hubble, and how this instrument is already changing the way we see the universe. So there's some amazing images there coming through. It really is quite stunning. What next is Hubble going to pick up? All right, I'm going to go right across to Timothy Scove with her latest space weather report. That'll bring us up to the hour, and sit back and enjoy the enthusiasm of Timothy Scove. And I was just going to have to make sure that I select the right button here. So just I'll reset that. Yep, okay, and here she goes.
We have a big flare player on the Earth-facing disk, and another one has just rotated into view. Those stories and more in the news this week. This space weather forecast is sponsored in part by Millersville University. Come get certified in broadcast space weather. Visit millersville.edu/SWEN. Space weather this week has calmed down for the most part. As we take a look at our Earth-facing disk, we have region 3098 here in the north. It's beginning to rotate to the sun's west limb, and it's actually shown quite a bit of growth over the last day or so. It's even fired an M-class flare, but for the most part, the activity is pretty much false starts. Nonetheless, we are still watching it especially for radiation storms, and I'll talk about the reason why more in a minute. Meanwhile, we also have region 3102 that's in the south. It's just rotated into view. This region is a solar storm player. It did launch some solar storms while on the sun's far side, so we're going to be paying attention to it, because in about 2 to 3 days, it will be rotating into the Earth strike zone, and if it launches a solar storm, it could definitely be Earth directed. Outside of that, we have a small coronal hole that's rotating through center disk right now. Sadly, this coronal hole is not going to send us enough fast wind with the right polarity to give us a big solar storm, so don't get too excited about it, but it could give us unsettled conditions here in about 2 to 3 days. But outside of that, everything that we see on the Earth-facing disk is pretty calm. We are waiting for new regions to rotate into Earth view from the sun's far side, and that's when activity will pick up. Switching to our M-flare threat meter, as we take a look at the X-ray flux over this past week, we've been sitting right about the seafloor, but you notice on the 11th we started to rise a little bit. That means by proxy the solar flux is also rising. We're well into the triple digits, and this means amateur radio operators should be enjoying some decent radio propagation on Earth's day side. And this rise has been due to region 3098 growing in complexity, but also region 3102 beginning to rotate into Earth view. These are the two big flare players. And in fact, as you notice, we did pop a small M-class flare, really short-lived. We call this an impulsive flare, back late on the 12th. This was from region 3098, which since then has been kind of teasing us, expecting, we're expecting to see more from it, but it's just kind of hovering below that M-flare threat level. But we are watching it as it begins to rotate to the sun's west limb, and the reason for that is that it begins to up that risk for radiation storms. And meanwhile, we're already in radiation storm territory. We have elevated fluxes from radiation from a far side launch that caused a radiation storm that's actually managed to make its way to Earth. We're only at elevated levels right now, but it won't take much to pop us over that S1 storm level. So we're kind of watching that. Also, on top of that, we have elevated electron fluxes in the radiation belts right now. And so satellite operators, especially in GEO and in MEO orbits, are not enjoying their time right now. So we really don't need any more radiation storms at the moment. We'd like things to kind of calm down. So we're definitely watching that region very, very closely. Meanwhile, we expect that these conditions will continue over the next few days and possibly increase a little bit more, simply because we have new regions that are going to be rotating into Earth view over this next week. Switching to our solar storm conditions, back at the beginning of the month, we actually started out with reasonably quiet conditions, but it didn't last long. We had a coronal hole with some fast solar wind that hit us pretty hard, and by the 4th, wham, you can see it right there, we actually bumped to G2 storm levels, and that brought aurora clear down to mid-latitudes, and it actually lasted for quite some time. In fact, we continued storming all through the 4th, the 5th, and even into the 6th, we had some decent levels of active conditions. And by the 7th, we finally started calming down a little bit. But my goodness, we continued to have periodic active conditions clear through to the 9th before things really totally quieted down. So aurora photographers, I sure hope you took advantage of this long duration storming that we had. We're going to be quiet for a little while. We're not going to see any storming like this from any fast wind until the beginning of October. But this coronal hole could actually return and give us more storming if it survives its far side passage. So kind of mark and pencil your books for October, the very beginning of October, because we could see this kind of thing again. Meanwhile, things have continued to quiet down, and right now we're at unsettled conditions. These conditions will easily continue over this next week unless we get some solar storm launches, because there really doesn't look like there's much in the forecast. So aurora photographers, just continue to enjoy, and amateur radio operators and emergency responders, expect to enjoy some decent propagations even on the Earth's night side, because it looks like you're all in the clear. And during the recent solar storming that extended from basically the 4th all the way to the 9th, we had some gorgeous aurora over many parts of the world. I can't possibly show them all to you, but thank you to all the aurora photographers who sent me pictures. They're just absolutely spectacular. So I'm going to share some of them now. Like this one in Norway. And we had gorgeous aurora in Denmark. And it was all over Scotland. So many people reporting from Scotland. It's wonderful. And it also dipped down into the UK. And as we begin to move over the pond, it was seen in Iceland. And as we reached the Western Hemisphere, it was seen all over Canada, including Quebec and in Ontario. And it was seen in Manitoba and in Saskatchewan. And of course in Alberta. And then it dipped down into the United States. We saw it in many places in the United States. I'm only going to show a few, like this from North Dakota and South Dakota. It was seen in Michigan and in Wisconsin. And we saw it in Minnesota. And and it made it clear to Washington State. But we also saw it in places where we don't get to see it very often, like New Hampshire. And it dipped down into Nevada and even down into Wyoming. And then down south, we did see some aurora. A lot of people were clouded out, but we did see some gorgeous aurora in Tasmania and also in New Zealand. So what else does our sun have in store for us this week? Well, this is stereo A. It's our partially far-sighted monitor. You can see here's Earth, here's the sun, and here's stereo A staring at the sun just a tiny bit from the side. And when we take a look at stereo A's view, you can definitely see region 3098 as it begins to rotate off to the sun's west limb in the north, and then region 3102 as it rotates into stereo's view down in the south. Now this region is firing solar storms and big flares. You can actually see it before it rotated into Earth view, launching a big solar storm there. So aurora photographers, we're going to keep our eyes on this region because it could launch Earth-directed solar storms in about 2 to 3 days. We'll see whether or not it continues to stay active, but we have high hopes. Meanwhile, we also have some bright regions in the north. Not too much going on there, but the big story is in helioseismology. As we take a look at our sun's far side using that, we see a big dark region that's about center disk on the far side, and that means that's region 3089, which was an old big flare player from about 3 weeks ago. This region looks like it's surviving its far side passage. It's going to be rotating back into Earth view in about a week, and if it does continue to act the way it is here, it could once again be a big flare player and big solar storm player. So aurora photographers, we've got more to look forward to here over the next week. Switching to our moon, we are now coming out of the full moon phase on our way to a third quarter, and by the 18th, the moon will still be about 44% illuminated. So you night sky watchers, if you want to catch those dim objects in the sky, you've got this bright companion to contend with, so be sure to check your local rise and set times. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, the space weather this week remains reasonably quiet. We don't have much in the way of solar storming except for a little bit of fast solar wind from a coronal hole that's rotating into the Earth strike zone over the next few days, but it's not really the right polarity, so we're not going to expect all that much activity from it. In fact, at high latitudes, NOAA is only expecting active conditions, but we do have up to about a 30% chance of a major storm, but likely that's a bit overblown. It's a bit optimistic. At mid-latitudes, we're only expecting unsettled conditions, but we do have up to about a 10% chance of a minor storm, and this will be over the next day or a few days until things kind of settle down a little bit from that fast solar wind. But again, it's likely not going to give us much more than some storming at high latitudes. So aurora photographers, if you're at mid-latitudes, you're likely going to need to sit this one out, and amateur radio operators, everything on Earth's night side should be pretty good, and GPS users, you probably shouldn't have to worry too much unless you're under aurora. Switching to our solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, we do have a lot of active regions on the Earth-facing disk, but really only 2 big flare players. These are regions 3098 and 3102, and region 3098 is the biggest player right now. In fact, it's the reason why NOAA is giving us about a 30% chance of M-class flares and even a 5% chance of X-class flares over the next few days. Luckily, region 3098 will be rotating to the sun's far side as we approach the weekend, and that will mean things will calm down a little bit. Nice thing though is that solar flux is staying in the 150s. We might even bump up to the 160s before things kind of begin to wane a little bit, but don't worry, we do have old region 3089 that'll be rotating into Earth view over this next week, and that will likely keep those solar flux numbers quite high, so amateur radio operators, your radio propagation will remain good on Earth's day side. Now the big story is actually when it comes to radiation storms. Right now we're sitting at elevated flux levels. We're below that S1 threat level right now. However, those fluxes still continue to be elevated, and as region 3098 rotates to the sun's west limb, That means we have an increased risk for more radiation storms. In fact, NOAA's giving us about a 15% chance of an S1 storm level over the next few days, and that risk, however, will calm down as we get to the weekend and that region rotates to the sun's far side. So you frequent flyers, and this does include air crew and any high-risk passengers, just stay vigilant right now. Everything is all good, but you should definitely check the forecast often. So the space weather this week remains reasonably quiet. We do have a couple big flare players on the Earth-facing disk, and one of them is a solar storm producer, but it hasn't launched any Earth-directed solar storms as of yet. We only have a pocket of fast solar wind from a small coronal hole that's about to rotate in through the Earth strike zone, but likely it's not going to give us all that much in the way of aurora. So aurora photographers, if you're at high latitudes, you could likely get a sporadic show over the next few days. But, if you're at mid-latitudes, you're likely going to have to sit this one out. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, radio propagation on Earth's day side is actually pretty good, but we are getting a bit of noise on the bands because we do have those two big flare players. However, we're not getting a lot of big radio blackouts, just a lot of noise. So things might be all right for you. And on top of that, we have that big flare player old region 3089 that'll be rotating back into Earth view over this, about a week's time. So that region will definitely make sure that solar flux continues to be boosted, and you'll continue to enjoy decent radio propagation conditions on Earth's day side. Now, you GPS users, well, things aren't looking too bad for you. You have a higher flux than you necessarily want to, and that impacts reception at low latitudes. But we don't have any big solar storms going on right now, so reasonably at high latitudes and pretty much all over Earth's day side, GPS reception should be pretty good. I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.
Okay, thanks, Tamitha. Let me see where my audio is. Bring that up a bit more. Okay, so I had to turn her down a bit because it was a little bit too much for my HF transmitters. Thanks, Tamitha Skov, Space Weather Woman, who happens to be also a ham radio operator. Can't remember a call sign right now, but there it is. And that's pretty current, that report. It's covering up until over the weekend and into the week. So all very good. Excellent stuff. And some excellent images there of aurora, which I have yet to see my own eyes at this stage. You're tuned to ASV Radio, VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel, VK3 EKH, visual station of the Astronomical Society of Victoria. And yeah. All right. I can see that there's an email that's come in from Stephen. VK3 SPX. It says a good signal up at Barringup. And I can see Mitch, VK3 Zulu Tango, has also given me a decent report there on his the Texan PL990. And we also have David, VK3 Echo Whiskey, listening in too. G'day, Dave. Nice to see your tune there on the chat window. All right, so just pop into the solar report briefly before we disappear, or go and take up call back on 80 metres. So I'm just going to go a little bit over time. Okay, the solar wind is currently at a speed at 356.8 kilometres a second. It's blowing a gale at a density of 8.05 protons per cubic centimetre. The current sunspot number is 71, and the radio sun, this is high, the radio sun measured at a wavelength of 10.7 centimetres is at 140 solar flux units. So it is up. And the current disk of the sun, which I do have an image here for, I'll cut that across there now. There it is. Okay, so there are 4 sunspots on the disk of the sun as we speak, designated as 3013, 30102, 3103, 3100 and 3098. So if you've got a suitable telescope able to look at the sun right now, even at night time, no, you'd be seeing that. So that's interesting, isn't it? All right. Now, also on spaceweather.com is a very interesting video footage that's been taken of a SpaceX satellite breaking up in the atmosphere, and I'm just running that now. So for those that are not watching video, I suggest going to the YouTube channel VK3CSJ on YouTube. I'll look for the live symbol. But what there is all sky camera footage taken of Starlink, I should say, Starlink incident. A minor geomagnetic storm is supposed to have been minor, and that's why even experts were surprised that on February 4, 2022, when dozens of Starlink satellites started falling out of the sky, a weak CME had hit Earth's magnetic field and resulting in G1 class minor storm was bringing them down. So the video footage here is actually, I don't know why it's taken so long to pick up, but the video is a Starlink satellite breaking up over Puerto Rico on February 7, 2020, and it appears it's just been released. Yeah, the article continues on to say here that although it was a minor storm which pumped almost 1,200 gigawatts of energy into Earth's atmosphere, explains lead author Tong Dang of the University of Science and Technology of China, this extra energy heated the Earth's upper atmosphere and sharply increased aerodynamic drag on satellites, and hence we've got some satellites breaking up, as you can see there in the video footage. Let's just see if I can fast forward that. There it is. There's a little bit more coming into view now. So it's something that I will organise here too with the observatory mentioned at earlier in the hour. I'll get an all sky camera, a digital high resolution sky camera running here in good old Narrewar in South. And I'll be able to capture the sky in all its detail, much like that. So just fast forward that to see if there's any more video. Oh, there's another one. Look at those. Look at the way that good old satellites burning up in the atmosphere. That's what should happen to all of them. But some of these fragments do eventually can come down to the ground. So that not all that debris is burnt up in the atmosphere, as a recent report in outback New South Wales had on a farmer's property. There was some debris that was had fallen to the earth. So yeah, there it is. It's very interesting stuff, isn't it? Okay, back to me. All right. I think that's about it. There's a whole lot more to read on spaceweather.com, but it's all very interesting stuff. And as of the 16th of September 2022, there were 2,293 potentially hazardous asteroids. So on that note, we shall conclude tonight's service. We weren't here last Friday, so we deliberately went over time, I guess. I had a couple of other articles to read out. Life on Mars, could there be a place? NASA's rover, help us to find it. There was an article on the news media tonight at 6 o'clock about that, so I thought I'd follow up on that. I'll probably leave that till next week. Another article, why does Earth have continents? That was an interesting quick read, so I'll leave that till next week as well. And something about lunar mining falls into grey area of international law about talks, but talks are underway to avoid conflict. The era of lunar resource use is quickly approaching, but with legal and practical issues still looming, nations are starting to think about sustainable ways to mine and protect the moon. So it's all happening. All right. And there was another one here too. This would have been a long article actually, but it's would have been of some value, I guess. The ABCs of stargazing. Take a seat at your scope and brush up on your observing vocabulary. It was, I thought, a bit appropriate, considering that I'm thinking about getting a dome in the backyard and start doing optical observing for the first time in my astronomical life. I've done radio astronomy, and now it's time to take up optical astronomy and astrophotography. That's it. Thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. To everybody there who sent me emails, Don, Andrew, Graham and Stephen, thanks very much, guys, for your emails. And to the guys up there on the Discord channel, to Mike, VK3ZT, David EW, Martin 7JAH, and Brett 2B2CBD, and Richard VK3VRS. So I think that's all there is there. I think Kim might be there too, VK5FUSE. Wrong mouse, Clint. Who else is there? Or am I looking at the other week? No, I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. Alright, this is VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel. We'll conclude our surface, medium wave surface, on 1865 kilohertz. And there won't be any callback on 160. We'll do that on 80. So standby stations on 80 meters. This is VK3EKH, the official station of the Astronomical Society of Victoria, concluding transmissions for the 16th of September. And for more information about the ASV, just go to the website www.asv.org.au. On that note, this is VK3EKH concluding our transmission 1865 kilohertz. Standby stations on 80 meters. Oh, God, I just got blasted with noise in the headphones. Oh, struth. I was monitoring myself on 160, so I'll just take those off. Oh. Okay. All right. So, so stations on 80. Just getting my pen and paper ready, and I'm partially deaf all of a sudden because I just blasted with 160 meter noise. All right. If this is all going to work. Yep. Okay. Stand by a sec. I've got to select the speaker. I've got one speaker between two radios at the moment. Yep, that's working. This is VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel at 12 minutes past the hour. Is there any stations wishing to check in? Okay, there's probably a couple of other stations there I didn't pick up. VK3GL, VK3VIN, VK3TJS, and there was another station just in there, and then VK3SPX. And I think there's even a weaker station. Who was the other stations, please? VK3EKH. All right, we've got VK3JR, and was there another station there? Yeah, I think there's two stations there. One's a bit distorted, from what I can tell, and just another station was just mixing with the distorted signal. That's what it seemed to me. Just try again the other station, VK3CSEKH. No, I can hear the VK3, and then all of a sudden the rest disappears. Try again. Okay, thanks for that, Ian. VK3 Charlie Alpha Lima. Now, there is a very distorted signal there. Just try again. Yeah, all right. There is somebody else trying to call in, but from what I can hear here, it's pretty distorted. So I'm not sure what's going on. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stations. If there's any other stations there, just stand by. We'll get to you. Graham, VK3GL and Bunyip, VK3EKH. Go ahead.
relief from the way the weather's been lately, and it's very, very soggy underfoot. Anyway, yeah, thanks for the broadcast tonight there, Clint. All quite interesting and well noted. I also was watching on the YouTube feed and saw the pictures of the aurora, which was quite interesting, and the pictures of Tasmania, the picture from Tasmania, and also the one from New Zealand. So it always seems to be that for whatever reason I don't happen to be around when there's a possibility that something like that might be happening. And if there was any slight chance of us seeing something here on the mainland, which would be good for a change, wouldn't it? I think you have to really go to the southern tip on the and have a pretty good look across the horizon. Maybe somewhere down like up on the hill at San Remo looking south or something like that would probably be a reasonable vantage point. Also saw the videos there of the breakup of the satellite. I'm wondering whether you do happen to know whether that was deliberate or not, or whether it was
No.
accidental. Those satellites. And if they're Starlink satellites, they're fairly new, so I don't really know why anyone will want to be trying to bring them down at this point, unless they were dysfunctional or something like that, perhaps. You may or may not know. Anyway, good broadcast and good signal. You're well and truly 20-30 over 9 tonight. Sounds like 80 metres is quite good. I've heard everyone be checked in, including that distorted signal. So I couldn't make anything of it out at all. It just, I don't know. It didn't even look like, didn't sound like it was even on the wrong sideband or anything like that. Just a very much distorted signal. Anyway, maybe they might come back and we might be able to figure it out in a wee bit. Again, thanks for the broadcast there, Clint, and I'll let you get on with the call back. And good evening to everyone. VK3EKH, VK3GL.
Thanks, Graham. VK3 Golf Lima. VK3 EKH, I was about to say CSJ. EKH returning. Thanks, Graham. You're not a very strong signal here, Graham. I mean, I'm copying you okay, but I mean, I would expect 20 to 30 over from you, but you're hovering there between 15 and 20-ish. Normally you're stronger, but it doesn't matter. No, the problem was due to the coronal mass ejection from the sun. There was, back in February, there was a report of several. In fact, I think there was up to 30 space Starlink satellites that had been basically destroyed because of the build-up of particles in the atmosphere due to the sun. So there was no one shooting them down or any intent to blow them out of the sky. That's not the case. This was just natural phenomena caused by the sun, and because these satellites are already in low Earth orbit, it wouldn't take too much for the atmospheric drag to be increased due to CME and putting them completely out of whack. So yeah, that's all it was. That was the reason for it, not because of any other man-made invention. Thanks, Graham. And it's certainly wet here, that's for sure. The garden is out of control at the moment, so I haven't had a chance to get out there because it's just wet. Thanks, Graham. Ian, VK3 Victor India November, VK3 EKH.
G'day, Clint. Hello, everybody. I'm on the little rig tonight, Clint, so I might be a little bit down in strength. As are you. Your peak is 20 over 9. You're normally peaking at 30. So you are a little bit down tonight, but nevertheless, a good broadcast. I missed a fair chunk of it through other activities. But when you get the camera operating. And okay, on the space weather from Amethyst, it's always good value. Quite a long report tonight, I thought. But yeah, conditions on 40 metres or 40 and 80 metres particularly have been rather interesting, including some echoes on signals during the day. And it sounds like multi-passing some of the time. So I don't know what would cause that during the daytime, Clint. Anyway, what I heard of it, good broadcast, a nice signal strength without being the usual strength, and good evening to everybody. VK3 EKH, VK3 VIN.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. VK3 VIN, VK3 EKH returning, very good. You're 20 over 9, quite a constant signal here into Narrewarren South, so not a problem copying you on your little radio, I think you referred to it as, so it's working quite well. Yeah, well, you only missed a little bit of the preamble, which I took up most of the time, talking about an astrodome that, or a scope dome that I'm getting for my observatory, which will be hopefully commissioned sometime early in the next year. But I will run when the telescope, when the dome arrives, and I mean I'll film it on video. I'll do all the usual footage stuff that I do with the video camera, and I'll make compile a little video that shows the from a grassy patch of grass to a full-on dome. Add water and dome suddenly appears. So anyway, yeah. So I spoke about that, and yeah, just a little bit of self-indulgence there. Otherwise, we spoke about Professor Frank Drake's passing, 92, and all he's done, and a few other things. So there it is. You can always catch up with the YouTube video because this is all recorded, courtesy of YouTube. And well, you have to. I think there's a box that you tick for that. So anyway, never mind. Thanks, Ian. Thank you very much for calling in. It's across to Jack up at Chipperton, VK3 TJS, VK3 EKH.
VK3 EKH, this is VK3 TJS. Good evening to you, and good day to everyone that's tuned in. And very, very interesting broadcast. And probably more Australian about 20 over. So throughout having been for a while the broadcast, but it's really good to do that, and keep doing this. Catch up with you later over the weekend, and thank you very much. VK3 EKH, VK3 TJS.
Thanks, Jack. VK3 TJS, Shepparton, VK3 EKH. Yeah, just your signal took a little bit of a dive during that went into the noise a little bit. But I think you were saying hi to Graham as well, giving him a report. So yeah, just a little bit hard to copy you there for a little bit, Jack. But otherwise, you came back up to 15, almost 20 over 9 on the call signs. It's always the call signs. Everything else disappears. Anyway, thanks, Jack, for checking in tonight. Appreciate that for sure. Yeah. All right. It's now Frank. We got VK3 Juliet Radio, VK3 JR, VK3 EKH. G'day, Frank.
Good evening, everybody. I've been missing in action the last few weeks due to the Christmas issue which is rectified. It's good to be back. I have to listen to the broadcast and enjoy them. That was a special report. I enjoyed the broadcast very much. What was your account of the highlight? I'd like to make that you're so enthusiastic. Otherwise, Clint, Ian, you sound particularly good when you watch and it's even got some nice bass response there. Not deep bass, but good. Very, very good indeed. I hope mine sounds as good when I get it going. Back to you, Clint, and thanks for doing it. VK3EKH,
Thanks, Frank. VK3 Juliet Radio, VK3 EKH returning. Very good. And you're about 10 to 20 over 9, coming through reasonably well tonight. So let's hope that you've got that radio in control now, or under control, or whatever might have been the problem previously. But never mind. So say good day to Steve, Mr. SL, if you're talking to him later tonight. No worries there, Frank. Good on you. And yeah, I agree. It's always good when we can get a solar report from Timothy that the dates actually are current with tonight and over the weekend. It makes it quite relevant to what's happening down here. A lot of her reports are released earlier in the week, which encompasses the week, and I'm usually picking up on the tail end of it. But this report today, and I only just checked it the last minute before going to air, that there was a video available. So she does a lot of reports that often go for over an hour. She'll do special solar reports that are really in full detail, and she has many people that to come up to chat via the YouTube stream that she runs. But like I say, it goes for well over an hour, a lot of those reports, so it's a little bit too long for this. So I really do look forward to her little 10, 13, 15 minute broadcasts that she does. Thank you, Timothy. Thanks, Frank. Across to Steve now. Stephen, VK3 Sierra Papa X-Ray, VK3 EKH.
VK3 EKH, this is VK3 SPX. Yes, hi Clint. Yeah, great signal from you today. Getting you, 30 over 9 most of the time, so really good. And this is on my new IC 7300, by the way, which I just got delivery of a couple of weeks ago, so I'm having fun with that. You're going to enjoy having a permanent scope set up there. And I've got a dome too, not quite the Rolls Royce scope dome you've got on order, but still works pretty well. Mine's actually on a deck, so which is good if you're in the dome all the time, because there's a mechanical isolation between the deck and the mount. But I think maybe if I did it next time, I might do a concrete base, because most of the time I'm actually not in the dome. It's all remote, basically. I'm inside the house, so not treating around the scope, possibly disturbing it anyway. Anyway, I think you'll have quite a journey there, getting it all automated. Mine's pretty much automated now, not quite enough that I'd operate it completely remotely, but certainly automated enough so I can just come into the nice warm house and let it run until the early morning, have it shut down on its own accord, shut the dome and close the telescope, and it's all there in the morning when you get up. Yeah, anyway, that's good. I saw those stuff about the Starlink satellites breaking up and the Earth's atmosphere expanded a bit. A bit hard to feel too sorry about that. And I'm sure when you get your astrophotography set up too, you'll see all these blessed satellites zooming across your images all the time too, screwing them up. So I'm not losing any sleep about poor Elon's satellites burning up. He's got plenty left anyway. Alright, that's enough from me, Clint. Thanks very much. VK3 EKH, this is VK3 SPX.
Yeah, no worries, Steve. How big was your dome?
How big is it now? A couple of metres across. Quite big. It's stand-up quite a size. The next dome, I forget the exact specifications, but you can comfortably stand up inside, and I've got a 9.25 electron mount inside without any problem.
Yeah, okay, no worries. VK3 SPX, VK3 EKH. Oh, very interesting. Yeah, okay. No, look, I've still got the option here to put a concrete floor in, but when you talk to the guys at Sidereal Trading, they would prefer a wooden deck. I think that might be because when they see that the scope dome that I've got rotates at the floor level, so it's not your traditional dome where you've got the a support structure and the dome sits on top. This scope dome, and I know you know it, the scope dome sits at the floor level and it rotates at floor level. So the slip ring, or the rotation ring that the whole dome rotates on, is attached to the floor of your observatory. And I figured that if you use concrete, they would have to use like dynabolts to hold the base of the dome down to the ground. That's one thing. But the other thing, of course, is that with a dome, with a concrete floor, you have to have it on that angle so that water runs away. So if you have a completely flat concrete floor, there is a risk that you might get water coming in under the dome and into your observing area on really wet days. So, and of course, thirdly, concrete absorbs the heat during the day. So if you're observing at night time during a hot day or summer, let's say, as that concrete cools down, the heat rises up and can cause problems with any images that you're trying to seriously do. So I just opted for a wooden deck because it'll be cheaper. It'll be easier to create this deck above the ground. So says I, who's never built a wooden deck before, but it'll be also easily removable. So if I should cark it in a year or two's time, anybody that comes past to break up the deck will be able to easily do that. A huge concrete slab would be a bit more difficult to get rid of, unless they get rid of the dome and put a gazebo on it, I suppose. Anyway, I'll keep you guys informed of that and how it goes. But you're quite right. I've pretty much got the Rolls Royce of domes, and I like I said, I've gone from one extreme to another, and it is definitely the Rolls Royce of domes. I like the fact that it'll be all motor controlled, and you can automate it. Just attach a computer to it, and the whole system will rotate with the telescope, and that's ideal for any astrophotography. As you say, you can be in the comfort of your Radio Shack or room inside while the telescope is doing everything automatically. So I'm really looking forward to exploring that, and I'm hoping that being here in Narrewarren South, that I can get some really good nights where I can get some really good images of deep sky objects, and prove the point that doing astrophotography, from a suburban block is possible. And I know it is. There's plenty of astronomers throughout the metropolitan area of Melbourne that have got backyard telescopes, and I'm blown away by a lot of the images that they're able to take, whether it's views of Saturn or deep sky objects. So it can be done, but of course it's better that you find a dark sky location. Anyway, that's another story. All right, we've got one more station there, and I believe it's Kelvin, VK3CAL, VK3EKH. Well, he was there. Kelvin, you're still there. VK3CAL, VK3EKH. Right, is there any other stations we should check in tonight? VK3EKH? Yeah, have a say, Martin. Good on you, Martin. Short and sweet. Thanks, sir. Very good. we're able to copy it tonight with some success, so not a bad signal across the strait. All right, no more stations. On that note, this is VK3 EKH, concluding transmissions for tonight, 16th of September. Thank you very much for listening in tonight to my overtones and carrying-ons, and we'll be back, we should be back next Friday to do it all again. I think next weekend is a particularly long weekend. I'll be home on Thursday, so Thursday's a public holiday, one of the one-off public holiday. So I think that's next week. Anyway, cheers everyone. Take care. Look after yourselves. Clear skies, as astronomers say, and stay warm. This is VK3 EKH for the Astronomical Society of Victoria, concluding transmissions tonight on 3541 kilohertz. Cheers everyone.
There was another station, please.
Yes. Go ahead. The other station. Oh, I can't hear anyone.
I think it was a VK1.
Oh, I can't hear anyone either, Clint. You better put me down too, Clint, VK3 VAT.
All right, we've got a couple of local lads breaking in there. Okay, thanks, Tony. Richard. Now, if there is a VK1, you're exceptionally weak here, unfortunately to say. But just send us an email, vk3ekh@gmail.com, vk3ekh@gmail.com, and let me know who you are, and I'll put you down in the log here. That's my log on YouTube. I'll take one more listen. VK1 something something something, VK3 EKH. Yeah, I can tell you're repeating the letters in your call, but I still didn't quite catch it. Anybody catch the station?
It was VK1 TTY, Cliff.
Good. VK1 TTY. All right, I got that. Oh, well, I have now anyway. VK1 TTY. Excellent. Yeah, you're not quite. I can hear you. Hang on, let me check my noise floor. Yeah, my noise floor is about 5 to 10 over 9. My noise floor is about 5 to 10 over 9, so I'm competing with the typical high noise level that one gets on 80 metres, especially if you live in suburbia. So yeah, a little bit hard to copy. Tim. Okay, g'day Tim. Just checking out on qrz.com. That's a nice little kitty you've got there in the picture. Nice little white and ginger white puss. I have a long-haired cat downstairs. His name is Kiska. It's the only cat that I've got left now. But Kiska's a beautiful little cat. She was born here, actually. And she's about 4 years old at this stage. So little Kiss is referred to her. Anyway, g'day, Tim. And, now, okay. See, this is where call signs get a bit. I'm not really pleased with the way ACMA have changed things with call signs. It really is one of those things. But I can see that Sale. See, you're in Sale, Victoria. How does that work out? VK1 and you're in Victoria. It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, all right, yeah, we got you, Tim, and. Well, we have now anyway, going by the qrz.com at least, and just having a quick look at your page there. Lots of things to read. Okay, not a problem. It's a good call sign too, actually, TTY. Yeah, well, all I can say is check out my QRZ page. You can check out VK3 EKH and you can also check VK3CSJ. They're both linked to get an idea of the shack location and what's in here. Anyway, sorry, Tim, that I couldn't copy your directive. Just a little bit on the weak side here, but we finally got who you are. I'm hoping got the right call sign. VK1 TTY in sale, I believe. VK3 EKH. What's the wrong one? Can't hear him. He's just there, but just can't hear him. I can tell he's talking. I think he's repeating something. Maybe I haven't got the right call sign. Oh, I thought I had a VK5. Yeah, I'm not sure. It sounds like you're repeating something, so I might even have the wrong call sign. I don't know. Is anybody was able to hear that?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, and I could hear him quite clearly. He was 5'8" to me here in Barringup. So he was saying that he's running a home brew, I think he said a 2-transistor rig running 2 watts. 2 watts only, QRP. So I could hear him quite well, but it was a bit of noise, but I could hear him quite well. VK3EKH, VK3SPX.
Thank you, Steve. VK3SPX, VK1 TTY in sale, I believe. VK3 EKH. 2 watts on 80 meters. Well, you know, if you're in a quiet location, such as where Steve is, you might have a good chance of being able to hear that 2 watt signal. So yeah, but unfortunately, Tim, here in good old suburbia, Narre Warren South, it's just a little hard to copy. If I ever win a significant sum of money from Tats Lotto, I'll be out of here. I'll find some nice little country location where there's 5 acres. I only want 5 acres of land, and set up a decent HF station and have a quiet location. I can hear everybody. That'd be so fantastic. But it's not going to happen, I don't think. Thanks, Tim. Your 2 watt QRP. It's not quite making it here into Narre Warren, but it is making it up to Steve, VK3 SPX there at Barringup. You say it quick enough, it's okay. Alright, cheers everyone, take care. I'm out of here. VK3 EKH with VK3 CSJ on the microphone, concluding. Thanks, guys. Okay, thank you for watching my YouTube channel. It's a pity that the TV repeater. It's a pity that the TV repeater VK3RTV wasn't working, but hopefully by this time next week we'll be back running a TV picture, a high definition signal through Melbourne television repeater. Cross fingers. So we'll see. But anyway, thanks for watching, and send us an email, vk3ekh@gmail.com, if you wish to report on anything or any articles you might want for me to perhaps read out. So thanks to Don, Andrew, and Graham, Stephen, and who's that? There's another email that's just come through. Who's that from? Oh, it's got nothing to do with what we're doing, so just ignore that. I'm going to start getting ads now on this. I didn't really want that to happen. And to everybody on Discord, Martin, Mitch, and again Dave, EW, and Brett, Richard there, and that's it. That's all that came up tonight on the chat window. So cheers to everybody watching. This is ASV Radio, VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel, on behalf of the Astronomical Society of Victoria. And if I had my station here and things set up, I could just run a caption there of the ASV's homepage, but I just don't have that available to me right now anyway. Got to work on that. Anyway, cheers everyone. We'll go to Colour Bars and say a very good night to everybody. See you next week. And the sound.